Welcome, and welcome to Sabbath School, and welcome church family. And our discussion today is going to be about what it means to be a church family in difficult times. And I'm certain we've all experienced difficult times over the last few weeks. One of the things that I have become very used to and very comfortable with, and now something that I miss a lot, is being able to be together with our church family. And I thought it would be helpful to us to talk about some things that, as a church family, we can do to help each other in this difficult time. I want to focus on a couple of texts that I have found interesting over the years. I discovered another one that's in Deuteronomy that I thought I would share with you to start. It's in Deuteronomy 26, verses 12 to 15. And it's talking about the first fruits and the tithes that the people of Israel were to give. When you have finished setting aside a tenth of all your produce in the third year, the year of the tithe, you shall give it to the Levite, the alien, the fatherless, and the widow, so that they may eat in your towns and be satisfied. And here's an illustration from the early Israelite times of what God is instructing them to do to take care of each other. In those days, a widow had no standing in society and was pretty much relegated to a life of poverty. The orphans, the same way, the alien in the land. And here God is instructing his people to set aside part of the tithe to support people in their community. There's a couple of other things in Acts where the early church, I think we see probably more of what it means to be a church family in some of the things in Acts than other places in the Bible. The first would be in Acts 4, starting with verse 32. All the believers were one in heart and mind. No one claimed that any of his possessions was his own, but they shared everything they had. And it goes on to tell about some of the things they did to help each other out. And then in Acts 10, there's the story of Dorcas, who instituted what we now call Dorcas within our church by her example of caring for those who were in hard times. And so to start our discussion, I'd like to ask a question. Before this ugly virus raised its head, what were the elements that really helped to define the Oceanside SDA Church and what we, with great frequency, describe as our church family? What are the things that you found particularly important in defining that church family?
Well, I particularly, and I'm missing it now, it is its second family that you get together with regularly. You stay in touch with each other's lives. It's the community. And you know what I really miss? I really miss touch. The fact that we're not supposed to touch anybody.
Yes.
I should be just bound and gagged because it's so hard for me.
What I'd say, what I've missed most is, as you said, Ken, coming together and seeing people, but just having people to talk about the scriptures with. You know, I taught the sanctuary Sabbath school lessons once a month, but even just, you know, seeing Saleem and taking him aside and talking for 10 or 15 minutes about a verse that we wanted to look at. And part of it is knowing that you're with a group of people who all believe the same thing, even if you're just talking about your week or your day to day. Just being with people who you know have this grounding in a desire to be God's people.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, some of the things the church does, like feeding the homeless, and especially the church school, where the parents are all involved, it gives us a real sense of family and community with the kids in the church.
Yeah. You know, a couple of the things that I appreciate, being able to sing praise together, whether you can carry a tune or not. And, you know, I very much remember my father, who couldn't carry a tune if his salvation depended on it, but he loved to sing because he was joining with everybody else in the congregation to sing praise to God. And, you know, the praise songs that we sing together are uplifting to us as a church family. And then just, you know, the people that we greet, we see them once a week, but they're like extensions of ourselves.
Ken, this doesn't mean you're going to spring at the end that we all have to sing together, are you?
Only if you want to, Jeff.
No. That would be a
Oh,
bad
well, I would just love to, but I know you'll turn it off just before I start.
Well, if we're going to go there, Saleem has some musicians in his family, and we might.
I don't think any of them can sing.
No.
They can-
Okay, so if you took what is most important to you as a Christian who shows up on Sabbath morning, what's the most important part of church for you?
For me, it's Sabbath school class.
I was going to say the same thing. For me, it's Sabbath school class that I sometimes want it to last longer.
Well, I'm going to third what they just said. With all due respect to Kevin and Eddie.
Yeah, this is not a disparaging of them.
Right.
It's just, it's a different thing though, Sabbath school
The
class.
one-on-one that you get with one another, the idea that you can hear from different people in the group, and you know, it's like if we're smart on our own, when we come together as 10 or 15 or 20, you've just exponentially increased the intelligence in the room.
I have found many times that
Right.
in Sabbath school, what other people say will be something I've never thought of, or it really adds to my theology. I mean, I can't put a value on that. It's just great.
Absolutely.
Well, I guess it's unanimous because it's the same for me. And I like to think I'm sort of thoughtful, and occasionally I probably even am. But going in a Sabbath school class where you have people with different backgrounds, and they look at the same piece of scripture and they come up with something I'd never thought of. And that's just a very enriching experience. So let me change, Kathy.
Well, I was just going to say the other thing about Sabbath school class versus worshiping as a church together, which, you know, it's also very important. But Sabbath school class, at least in the class that I go to, there's a certain safety. I mean, I feel like I can think out loud or ask questions, and I feel that these are people that are all, I'm safe with them. I can, you know, and they're safe with me. And I think that's the value in a small group.
Right.
Yep.
I agree.
You know, very obviously at this point in the development of the virus, getting together as a church family just isn't really safe or reasonable. And so suddenly our family has been ripped apart, isolated, and we don't have that same ability to be together, fellowship together, talk together, share together. So what is it that we could do right now that would help our church family continue to function as a family?
Well, you know, I heard about Jason, who is just, you know, he's young and strong, and I think he feels like he's a good one to, but he has just been visiting a lot of the people that, you know, we might be even most concerned about. I mean, I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I get no credit for any of that, but I really admire that Jason's been doing, and I'm sure there are others.
Yes, Jason has been doing a lot. I think right now he's working outside of the immediate area, so he's been removed from our
Oh,
community a bit. But yes, he's been doing an incredible amount to help people.
I think one of the things that we can do is what the five of us are doing right here, right now. Now, I know that the learning curve was a little bit steep at the beginning for people to figure out how to use Zoom and Google Meet and things like that. But I've been meeting with a lot of people in this, you know, this type of situation, and you almost begin to forget that you are not there talking with one another, you know, as a group in the same space. So I think this is really cool. I mean, you know, there's a little part of me, I was talking to Amy about this the other day, that feels like I wonder if God wanted us to be forced to slow down and to be forced to spend time together so that we could reconnect and so that we could find those things that, you know, because you can only watch so much Netflix, you can only read so many books. Even those of us who are working from home, we have so much opportunity to just be together. And that could be a very good thing. It could be a great opportunity for us, especially if we could reach out to our larger church family in doing it.
yeah.
Very true.
So in Hebrews it says, don't give up meeting together. You know, this is Hebrews 10:25. So, but that does not preclude meeting through Zoom and Google.
Actually, I have to say, a week ago tonight was the first time that I'd ever used Zoom. And I proceeded to record this discussion and store it somewhere up on the cloud. And then I had no real clue as to how I was supposed to get it down from the cloud and get it to Kevin. Now, then magically it appeared on my email, and so I wasn't sort of totally out of it. But it's really pretty incredible how easy it is to get together in this medium and several others that are out there. And I guess I'll make the offer. If there are those in the congregation who don't know how to use Zoom and would like somebody to host a meeting of them and their friends, I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is, I think just about everybody has one of these.
Yeah.
And there are people who seem to be so addicted to them that they can't drive down the road without either talking or texting. And so I'd pose the question, have we invested enough effort in reaching out either by text or phone call to the members of our congregation?
Very good question.
Well, I thought about that too, and I come up wanting.
Well, you're not the only one.
Yeah.
As a classroom teacher of, you know, well over 100 kids, one of the things that we're being required to do, because we're still doing online learning, is make a regular report about who hasn't been in touch, who are you not hearing from, who hasn't shown up in meetings, who hasn't turned anything in. And I think that's a really good thing for us to be doing, but it makes me wonder, are we doing that with our church membership? Do we know who hasn't been in touch, who hasn't been heard from? That would be something that seems like we really need to be on top of.
Well, it seems like we all have a church directory.
Yeah.
And there are phone numbers in that church directory.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't even have to put on a mask when you pick up your phone and call somebody. So maybe that's something that would be pretty useful for us as a church to start practicing a little bit better.
I've been thinking about it. I don't think I get any credit for thinking about it, but I'm thinking that is a really good idea. you know, one little funny thing, and it's just on the side, but you know, I raise and sell English Labrador retrievers. Now, you would think at a time with the economy so tremulous and all this sheltering in place and jobs lost, you'd think that what I do and would be real unimportant. I want you to know I have almost been buried every single day, 30, 40 phone calls a day looking for a dog. And
They're good company.
Yeah.
well, I do think that's apparently, you know, people are at home and but I mean, I've never, in all the years I've done this, I mean, it's no excuse, but I can hardly stand to look at my phone.
Interesting.
But I do need to focus some of that on the church family. That, I think that's a great idea.
It almost seems, and I'm not volunteering myself here, but it almost seems like we could go about that systematically, right? Like split up the directory and say who's going to reach this group and who's going to reach out to this group. There are some people, of course, that we know are in frequent contact, but I'd hate for anyone to slip through the cracks.
Yes, agreed.
Good idea.
Not only in terms of their safety, but how does one feel when it's been weeks and no one has reached out or made any contact?
Right.
I've thought of that too. Well, you know, I wonder, well, maybe, I guess we could all be just doing what we're moved to do. Jeff has a point there of having some sort of systematic way of not letting people, you know, if 4 of us call one person
Right.
and nobody calls another.
Right.
So I came up with the idea that means you all have to do it.
Did I mention that organization was not my strong suit?
Well, in that case, I can make it fairly simple. I can just go through the directory, cut it into 4 parts or 6 parts or wherever and say, you are now hereby responsible.
Okay, okay. I
Maybe-
can follow directions.
Okay, I'll remember that, Kathy.
Maybe the people that are watching this can also submit their names and we wouldn't even have to split it into 4.
Well,
Yes.
you know, I think that is a super good idea. I'm sure there are a lot of people in the church would like to know what could they do. And, you know, I hate to say it, but I'm in the age group where they're, you know, they're not encouraging me to go and reach out to a lot of other people in a physical way. So, you know, I bet there are a lot of people like that would be happy to call and check in on some people.
My mom loves to talk on the phone and I'm running out of stories. So
So
I'll
this
tell
is,
you what, Jeff, I'll call your mom if you'll call my mom.
okay. At least I could use the
But-
same story.
You know, kidding aside, you know, I think this is something pretty simple that if we just sort of flip our on switch, we have a phone, we have phone numbers, we have a family in the church. Let's make sort of a personal resolution that we're going to take the time and the effort to reach out to some other people in the church and just let them know we're thinking about them.
yeah, because I do think about them. I just haven't called, and I need to make that next step.
Yeah.
Of course, I got to see some of you tonight. That was nice.
Like I said, I'll host a meeting anytime for anybody who wants to show up.
You know, this may be one of the not that we don't have things we're doing, but this is, we're certainly, I'm going to guess, most of us less busy now than we've ever been as adults, probably, because we do have more downtime that we need to make that happen. So saith I.
Yep.
He's breaking out. I can't hear him now.
Yeah, we've lost your audio, Jeff.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
That's better.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Well, what I was saying is that that we are probably at a time in our lives when we've never been less busy, or at least have more downtime when we could really do this.
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay.
So what are some of the other needs of our church family?
Earthquake at Kathy's.
What was that last?
We noticed the earthquake at your house.
Well, what happened was, you see, this comes to Bluetooth to my ears, and it suddenly just went to one ear. And so I was trying to turn my phone so that it would go back to both ears. Sorry, group.
But to repeat the question, are there other things that different members of our church family need, and what are they, and how can we help?
Well, I mean, we talked about Jason and how he's been providing necessities for people who aren't as able to go out and get them for themselves. So that's certainly something. And you said that he's not as much in action now as he has been. So, I mean, we have that still. Needing to help people get stuff.
I suppose I don't know. I almost depend on somebody at church to let me know what's going on, because I sometimes don't know what the needs are.
Maybe this would be an opportunity to tie two things together, that as we start making a few phone calls,
Right.
that we do it from the context of, how are you doing? Are there things that you need? Are there things that we can do to help you in a difficult time? And I think from that point, we then have to say, okay, if we come across somebody who hasn't had a paycheck for the last 4 weeks, and the pantry is almost empty or whatever, what do we do with that?
Would they share, if they would share that with us? I mean, food is something well, we had a leak in our roof and I had to load everything out of the pantry. It came down through the pantry, and it looks like I could be here for a year and still not starve. So I could surely help somebody else.
So another thing that I think is, and this is something that I think our church is pretty good at, is praying for each other. But more importantly, letting one another know that we're praying for one another, not just sitting alone quietly and doing it, but reaching out and saying, "I've been praying for you." I spoke a while ago with Mike Dang, who was very happy to hear that. And, so following up with the call is important, but we should be praying for each other every day.
Well, I find that that's true, not only for our church, although we do pray for our church every day, even though we don't know each individual story and how it's playing out. But for this whole country, it's just, I think praying is probably the one thing we can all do.
Mm-hmm. And it's hard
Saleem,
to know.
Saleem, I thought I saw you about to jump in there for a minute ago.
I'm just agreeing with we need to remember our fellow members and pray for them. I like Jeff's idea of calling or texting, check on them. I think that would be very nice. I never remembered that we have a church directory. We can just look it up and start doing that. But Ken, you suggested that we divide it up sort of to make sure.
Everybody gets contacted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good, great idea.
What we could do, going back to that, I'm a little bit like Kathy, although maybe I'm an okay organizer, but maybe we should, ask for people to help us. If 20 of us were reaching out to the whole directory or the whole church membership, you could have a conversation with a number of people, and it wouldn't be, for example, the 4 of us having to reach every single person, but it makes sense to me to do it systematically. So Ken, I don't know exactly how people will see this. Is it going to be on YouTube?
It'll be on the church website for Sabbath school, yeah.
I mean, so we could certainly set up something whereby anyone who's willing to take a section of the directory gives us their name, and we say, okay, you take these names to this name, and so on and so forth, and we get the calls done. Make sure everybody's.
Would the calls go into the church, or how did we get that information from those that might hear this and say, hey, I could do that, I'd like to?
Well, if it's on YouTube, people could just put their name underneath and say, send a message saying, hey, I'm in. If not, they could certainly call Sarah at the church or get a hold of
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Okay. That's a great idea.
I'm not the best organizer, but I think that could be something we could do.
Mm-hmm. I like the idea of spreading it out a little bit, not just because it's easier, which of course it is, but because everybody feels, well, one time years ago in a church I was in, it was supposed to be in gathering, only I ended up in charge, and I didn't know that I was in charge of it, and I didn't really want to do it. And so I turned it around where I got the church to make little loaves. This is back in the day when you could, little loaves of banana bread and so forth. And we went out and we just thanked the community for all their support all the years before. And, you know, it was so much fun. I provided the pans, but there were little widows, just little ladies, all sorts of people that said, can I take 10 of those home? I want to do this. And everybody felt like they were part. And there's something really neat about that too.
Yeah.
We're about out of time here, and if anybody has any final comments, I'd welcome them, and then I'll just try and summarize here for a moment.
Well, I would just like to say that I love the whole church family, and I miss being together with the church family, and I look forward to, I hope it's soon when we can get back together. There's nothing better than being in the same place at the same time. But until then, I'll try to keep everybody in my hopes and prayers and thoughts.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to being able to go to Sabbath school and church again. And anyone watching this, happy Sabbath.
Happy Sabbath.
I agree with everything you've just said. I think it'll be a while once we can get back to being together that we won't be taking that for granted anymore, at least, you know, for the length of time.
I may never take that for granted again.
For sure. Let me try and just summarize a few things. We're a community of believers. We are a family. And one of the really easy things that all of us can do is we can pick up the phone and call our family members. And I would encourage everybody in the church to pick that up as their personal responsibility to stay in touch with their family members. The other thing I would say is there are people in our church that are in pretty dire straits. We don't know them necessarily. If we come across them, please let somebody in the church office know so that we can get some help to people who are in need of it. Anybody who's listening to this Sabbath school, if you have a personal need, please contact the church office and we'll do what we can to assist you. And finally, I like the comment that you made, Jeff, about it's really good to pray for each other, and it's even better to let somebody know that we're praying for them. And so I would encourage our entire church family to pray for each other and to let them know that we're praying for that particular person. And in the end, the best thing I can say is happy Sabbath. I hope you have a really blessed day.